So what will the Ontario Retirement Pension Plan look like for the non-profit sector? Employers that don't have a comparable workplace plan will pay 1.9% of their employees' earnings into the plan, and their employees will match that. So for the non-profit sector, where many employers have faced funding freezes for the last 5 years or so, this is going to be a burden on their budgets, obviously. So what the Ontario Nonprofit Network has been advocating in our submission to Minister Hunter is for the implementation of the ORPP to be looked at by a task force, and to make sure that the funding arrangements that nonprofits have with the Ontario government reflect this increase in staff costs, and that the Ontario government support us when we deal with municipal and federal governments with our funding agreements with those levels of government, to make sure that the new staffing costs are reflected in funding agreements with other levels of government. In the past couple of months, Minister Hunter has reached out to a number of organizations in the nonprofit sector to talk about how the ORPP could affect them. At meetings convened by the Minister, the ONN and other organizations expressed support for the implementation of the ORPP as a way to improve retirement income security. But we did advocate for a task force so that the nonprofit sector can work with government on implementation issues affecting the sector, and also to look at ways that broader pension and retirement income security issues in the nonprofit sector can be looked at. This task force should look at things like financial literacy, whether nonprofit organizations, their boards and staff have enough knowledge of pension plans to make good decisions about their own workplace plans, or about other vehicles to attract and retain talent in the nonprofit sector. We suggested that the task force look at broader pension issues for the nonprofit sector, whether there should be perhaps an Ontario-wide pension plan for the nonprofit sector, and of course the task force should address the ORPP implementation issues facing the sector, and how that can be looked at in the context of the need for broader funding reform for the nonprofit sector in Ontario. I had mentioned earlier that workplaces that have comparable plans will be exempt from the ORPP, and we don't know exactly what that looks like yet. It's not defined in the legislation, but we're expecting that comparable plans will mean defined benefit plans. So for those workplaces, generally larger employers that have a defined benefit pension plan, they will not have to pay into the ORPP. But for the vast majority of nonprofits that have staff, they will generally not have these kinds of plans, and so will be affected by the ORPP and will be expected to contribute into it.